This is the Tyler Morgan Show on Relentless Dairy Media Network.
Welcome to the land of bourbon and bad decisions, where the nights are long and the truth cuts deep. Voices rise against the tide with clear intentions in a place where freedom never sleeps. Echoes of the past in the halls of tomorrow. The light will chase away the whispers of sorrow. Stand tall, never bow, the fight's just beginning. With every word, the fire keeps on spinning. Let the roar, you got a message for the nation. Raising up the flag with no hesitation. Through the storm, the fire burns bright. On the edge of reason, we defend our rights. Whoa.
Welcome back to the land of bourbon and bad decisions. This is the Tyler Morgan Show, live on twitch.tv/Tyler Morgan Show and at the Tyler Morgan Show on YouTube, youtube.com/at the Tyler Morgan Show. All that happy stuff. If you're new to the show, thanks for starting us out live. If you're joining us on a replay or on podcast, appreciate that too. But hang on here on the live stream. It's always what talk about with the all these stuff and new stuff. You can only do so much. Hopefully it wants to stabilize here as the show goes on. But before that, do about coffee. Yes, that's right. My favorite beverage is coffee, despite all the bottles of whiskey you see above my head if you're watching this on video. And my favorite coffee is from at American Pride Roasters. American Pride Roasters brings you the best coffee from around the world in great blends and great roasts that will absolutely up your coffee game. Check out their amazing lineup of just regular coffee flavored coffees. My go-to of the coffee flavored coffees, top of my list has to be the Thomas Paine Age of Reason Remix. Great blend of Robusta beans that gives a nice little extra caffeine kick. Or maybe you're into the flavored coffees. Hey, it's not my thing, but maybe it's yours. I highly recommend you try the George Washington Carver Chocolate Peanut Butter Roast. Just chef's kiss, absolutely amazing. I'm not a flavored coffee person, and I absolutely love it. So check out their amazing lineup of coffees, whether it's coffee, flavored flavored coffees, or the coffee drops. Check them out today at aprcoffee.com. American Pride Roasters, historically great coffee. All right, so getting into the wild and wacky world of politics. This week was a big week for the state of Virginia, who had managed to push through a referendum vote that would have redistricted the state or allowed the legislature to redistrict the state, which would have given like a 9-to-1 ratio, 10-to-1 ratio of Democrat to Republican seats in Virginia. But while all the Democrats across the country were celebrating this milestone, there were many people working to push back against this vote. And one of those was a Politibunny on Twitter. She worked super hard, put in a lot of effort into all of that in order to get obviously in the run up to it, getting the truth out about what this plan was going to do. And I think they only lost by like 14,000 votes. And it seems like a lot, but considering that was like a 1% difference, just over 50% to just over 49%. And they didn't stop there. Other groups got involved and filed for a ruling from the Virginia Supreme Court to look at it and say, hey, we think that Democrats here in Virginia did some shady things to push this through. And the case went to the Virginia Supreme Court, who did rule in a 4-3 ruling that, yes, there was some issues and that this amendment to temporarily allow a partisan gerrymander of the state's congressional districts was unconstitutional. So they put the slap down on it, and Democrats are working to get it to the Supreme Court. And, we'll see where it goes from there. Are they going to take it up? Are they not going to take it up? I have to wait and see on that one. But everyone's all on the left is totally freaking out on what this means for, voting in general. And a lot of them are playing the race card. Oh, this is disenfranchised black voters. Well, is it really, though? Is it really stopping anyone of any race, religion, creed? Is it stopping anyone from actually voting? And the simple answer to that is no. But as they wound through Virginia Supreme Court, one of the irregularities that was pushed forward was, according to the Virginia Constitution, did they meet the benchmarks to be able to push this through by referendum? And one of the things that was brought up was, hey, this was started, last year, but not with two consecutive sessions of the legislature to be able to put it through. It was started mid-session, and it was started during the early voting for 2025, which this has brought a very interesting argument from Democrats. Democrats arguing against the whole, it was started after the beginning of early voting. They're going, well, election day is only one day out of the year. But, okay, if election day is only one day out of the year, why is there such a big push for early voting? I mean, no one has been able to answer that one. If the 1 day a year thing is perfectly fine for making this argument, why is it such a big deal for people to vote on election day? And I get it that, what they want to do. But another thing is, in the Virginia Constitution, is that partisan gerrymandering is no bueno. It's very specifically prohibited. And so now that you have, Texas, they did their redistrict. Here in Missouri, we redistricted. Tennessee redistricted. Louisiana, their case was decided by the Supreme Court that you could not have a specifically racial reason for drawing up a congressional district. And then, so in Virginia, they're like, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to severely limit how many Republicans represent Virginians in the Congress. So they were drawing like these convoluted maps that were dividing up Republican districts, so that way you'd have districts that ran from central Virginia all the way up to DC, and just flooding the zone with strong Democrat areas. And that was fine. But other states going, because like here in Missouri, the way they redrew the maps is that Kansas City has been absorbed into 3 other districts instead of just one district. And they're freaking out. Oh, what about African Americans in Kansas City? They can still vote. And telling Black people that they no longer have a voice because they might get drowned out by rural white voters. Missouri is still a fairly purple state. I mean, you just have to look at how the people voted on Amendment 3 just a couple of years ago, where they overruled Missouri's law banning abortion. Granted, they couched it all in women's health care, because obviously the only health care that women can have is abortion. But now there's a new amendment referendum going out that would change what Amendment 3 was to now include everything in the original Amendment 3 except for the abortion care. But you really haven't heard a lot of ads, or I've seen a few signs, but there's no like big push that I've seen to really get this through, which I think that's moved by Big Baby to use abortion to continue to raise money to fight abortion, but not actually being committal enough to the fight to actually get it done, because they can make more money fundraising off of it than by banning it outright. So that's neither here nor there. But one of these big problems, though, is states have adopted 50+1 or simple majority. So not even 50+1, just you get 50.01% of the vote and it passes. And so in states like I said, Virginia, which they reached a simple majority and they passed this districting amendment, whereas you would think for an amendment, you would want a bigger coalition amongst voters to be able to get it passed, which they tried that in Missouri to change the majority for a referendum vote to you need, I think it was 66%. You needed 2/3 of the state to agree for an amendment to go through. And because it's a simple majority of Democrats were able to get out and vote no on it. And it's ridiculous, though, that the 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 backlash from Democrats on this whole Virginia thing. Again, making the argument that, oh, this is an attempt to take the country back to Jim Crow, which is weird that they make this argument because Democrats were the party of Jim Crow. They were the party of blocking the Civil Rights Act. You have Lyndon Baines Johnson, who signed the Civil Rights Act into law once it passed the House and Senate. When he was a senator just a few years earlier, was part of the filibuster against the Civil Rights Act. And then I'm not going to give the full quote attributed to him when he signed the Civil Rights Act into law about a certain word for black people. This will keep them voting Democrat for 100 years. But yeah, it's just ridiculous. The party that was the party of slavery, that was the party of, keeping black people from voting, keeping, charging poll taxes, making people take literacy tests. They're the party that suddenly, oh my gosh, look what these white hateful people from the right are doing. When in all actuality, they really don't care. White Democrats do not care about black people other than how can we use them. And so all their arguments just fall flat on their faces every time, even when with the idea of voter ID. If you ask a white liberal Democrat about voter ID, okay, take that back. You ask a white liberal Democrat who is a mouthpiece for Democrat voting, they will say, well, they're trying to keep black people from voting because black people, they can't get an ID. Oh, hello, bigotry of low expectations. We meet again. And but when you look at actual polling numbers on this, it polls at over 80%. You start breaking it down, African Americans, it is well over the majority to have voter ID. Hispanics, well over the majority about you should have voter ID. Democrats, it's like 70% when polled. But when it comes to actually doing what voters would like to have done, they fight against it. They don't care about what African Americans and Hispanics actually think. Why? Because, well, those people, they just don't know how to think for themselves, and they don't know what they're doing. And the white Democrats who think the same way, they're just uninformed about what this will do. And insert the "it's ridiculous, man" meme in here. all they care about is power, period. End of story. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of Republicans that if they can be controlled opposition and be able to get power and fundraise off of Democrats, they will absolutely do that and just keep saying the buzzwords over and over again and not actually do anything about it when in power. I mean, look at the Save America Act. The Save America Act, Republicans could force the issue in the Senate, but John Thune won't. He won't bring it to the floor. But come next election, he will be out there as a loud voice talking about, we need election integrity. Well, we could have gotten it, John, Senator Thune, but you did not want it. The other power brokers in the Senate in those top seats did not want it. Instead of forcing Democrats into a, talking filibuster, yes, a talking filibuster would have bogged the Senate down. And nothing would have gotten done, which, hey, a Congress that doesn't pass laws is a Congress that is not actively screwing you over. I will take a deadlocked, stalemated Congress and Senate any day of the week over one that will just ramrod stuff through that does more to give power to corporations, give power to the government, and take that power from you. So no, it's John Thune just a baby back bitch when it comes to that. But yeah, a story about the Virginia Democrats on the Virginia redistricting thing. Virginia Democrats to appeal ruling against redistricting to U.S. Supreme Court, which honestly, the U.S. Supreme Court will probably go, that's a state courts issue, not a federal issue. You're not making a good enough argument for any reason for it to come here. And so if they can't get 4 votes to, hear the case, they're not going to hear the case. And don't get me wrong, they pretty much have 3 votes in the bag already. It's just who's going to be that Republican or that conservative judge that goes, I think they're making a good point. Let's hear it. All right. So Virginia Democrats to appeal ruling against redistricting to U.S. Supreme Court. After the Virginia Supreme Court on Friday struck down voter-approved Democratic congressional redistricting plan, Democratic lawmakers in the Commonwealth notified the court they intend to appeal the ruling to the U.S. Supreme Court. Friday's ruling by the state Supreme Court delivered another major setback to the party's nationwide battle against Republicans for an edge in this year's midterm elections. Democrats, led by House Speaker Don Scott and Attorney General, I hope your kids watch you die. Your husband is a Nazi who deserves to be shot in the face. Jay Jones, the guy that these texts came out and no Democrat walked away. No Democrat said, holy crap, that is unhinged. We don't want anything to do with you. You need to drop out of this race. No, they gave him a pass. Now, this is what I said with the Eric Swalwell thing. He's politically useful. He can be used to push narratives and make arguments and forward the Democrat agenda. So he is still politically viable. So they're not going to cut ties. So, yeah, Attorney General Jay Jones filed a motion late Friday afternoon asking the state Supreme Court to pause its ruling from taking effect while they appeal for an emergency hearing before the U.S. Supreme Court. The Virginia Supreme Court ruled 4-3 that the state's Democratic led legislature violated procedural requirements when it placed the constitutional amendment on the ballot to authorize mid decade redistricting. Voters narrowly approved the amendment on April 21st, but the court's ruling renders the vote's result meaningless. Writing for the majority, Justice D. Arthur Kelsey wrote that the legislature submitted the proposed constitutional amendment to voters, quote, in an unprecedented manner, end quote. And it goes on, this violation irreparably undermines the integrity of the resulting referendum vote and renders it null and void. Democrats had hoped to win as many as 4 additional U.S. House seats under Virginia's redrawn map as part of an attempt to offset Republican redistricting done elsewhere at the urging of Donald Trump. Friday's ruling combined with a recent U.S. Supreme Court decision that severely weakened the voting rights. Oh my God. I love this. They keep going, oh, this weakened the Voting Rights Act. No, it didn't. No, it did not. Because under the section of the Voting Rights Act that they routinely cite, under Section 2, Democrats have been using Section 2 as a way to force states to use race-based districting in order to draw up their maps. That there had to be so many districts that were based entirely on the black population and not just simply going, all right, we have this block here that has this many voters, this block here, this block here, this block here, and however it shakes out at election day, that's how it goes. But and what started off all of this that no one will tell you is that in 2020, following the census, the state of Texas said, okay, here's our population, here's where we've had growth, here, here's where people moved around. Here's how we are redrawing the maps. If you look at the congressional districts in Texas, with the exception of like Austin, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, Fort Worth, El Paso. Well, El Paso is a gimme to the left, no matter how you slice that town up. With the exception of a few places where the commission drawing up the map went in and said, okay, how can we best, carve into places so we get a good mix of racial identity, political alignment. So that way, it's a fairly even-handed map. And the Democrats stepped in and got it blocked. And they said, no, you have to use this map. That was the Biden administration in late 2020 doing that and going into January of 2021. So they were forced to vote to accept a map that they did not want. So when they went through legal review and does our Constitution bar us from doing this? Oh, it doesn't. Okay. Here's the map that we originally wanted, and it goes +5 to Republicans. That's what started all of this, was Democrats blocking the Texas initial redistrict because they said, well, that's not fair. We don't like that map. You can't have that map. And as a result, Texas redistricted. Indiana ended up redistricting Tennessee, Louisiana, Missouri, so on and so forth. And Louisiana was about the same way, where they sent forward a proposed map and it got shot down by a federal court saying that, well, according to Section 2, which does not cover how you draw maps. Simple, end of statement. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act has everything to do with preventing people from going into a polling place and casting a ballot. Nothing about how you have to draw maps. This was, legislation via courts that said this is how you have to do it. And yeah, it's kind of like, what is that stinking court case? I have to look this one up. Do. Wickard v. Filburn. There it is. So, history lesson. If you're new to the channel, you've never heard me talk about this in the last 5-6 years I've been doing this podcast. Wickard v. Filburn, a farmer in upstate New York, kept X amount of wheat to feed his cattle during the winter that was in excess of government mandated quotas. And he was taking the court over it because, well, this how do we know you're feeding that to the cows? How do we know you're not sneaking it into the market? So they fined him. He sued, went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, this was during the New Deal, and the Supreme Court ruled that, well, if you're doing this and it may have an effect on interstate commerce, then yes, the government can regulate what you do on your farm, regardless of if you're affecting interstate commerce or not. That would, using the ever popular Commerce Clause. And that is how the Commerce Clause began to be used as a weapon. And now anything that involves any sort of interstate commerce, if you are using the internet and you're sending emails making threats to someone, normally making threats via email, yes, that would be your state. If you were emailing Bob 2 houses down and making threats, the state could prosecute you for that. But now, because you used electronic device to send an electronic threat over state lines, you were using interstate commerce. So now you have drawn a felony charge from the feds. But yeah, it's just I got off all derailed there because my mind went to Wickard v. Fillmore, and I can't trace back to what got me on that. Darn you, brain. I'm not even drinking whiskey, and I've only had like half a beer. Yeah, Democrats losing their minds over, ah, yeah, court precedent. That's what got me there. So states sued saying, we're not getting, or we're not getting good representation for African Americans. How are these African Americans going to be able to vote if they can't even, don't even have enough people to be able to send up someone who looks like them? Yeah. And then you have a court precedent saying that, oh, well, no, you have to do this. You have to do it this way, or else you're violating their rights. No, this is just an amazing overstep by the government. And I get it. Case law is essentially written law, but it's also amending laws from their original stated purpose, not by congressional mandate, not by legislation, but by a guy in a black robe. And it's ridiculousness. It is straight ridiculousness that we allow people who are many times not elected, but selected to make these rulings that can completely upend the Constitution and written law. And we see this with federal gun laws where someone will sue in federal court over gun bans, over accessory bans, what have you. And you'll have one court in that district that says, well, because a magazine is not part of the firearm itself, yes, you can regulate how many rounds your magazine can hold. Even though without the magazine, the weapon is essentially a paperweight, whether it is a handgun or a rifle. So now you have a guy in a black robe who just redefines everything about firearms. And this is dumb. And in this case, this is one of those cases like if the judges had ruled on behalf of Democrats and then laid out point by point why, yes, this was a constitutional thing, even if it was a Republican led turnover. This is one thing I like about Neil Gorsuch. If Neil Gorsuch at SCOTUS rules with the liberals, 9 times out of 10, he is the one who is going to write the decision. And when he lays out why he sided against the conservatives, it is always in line with the Constitution. He's not quoting scholars. He's not quoting random case law. He quotes the Constitution and why siding with liberals is the correct way. I might not agree with it, on the surface level, but when he breaks it down, here is why I said this is constitutional. This is why I said this is unconstitutional. And if he does it in a way that makes sense and does it in a way that, and he does it where he explains why it's in line with the Constitution by quoting the Constitution itself, it's like, yeah, I don't like how you ruled, but damn it, the way you ruled makes sense. And Okay, I'll take that. And that's how judges should be. Those rare times when Elena Kagan crosses the aisle and sides with the conservatives on the court. And if she doesn't write the majority opinion, she writes the a concurrent opinion. Yep. She will say what her personal feels are, but if her personal feels are not in alignment with the Constitution, she says it. It's like, well, she'll be like, well, personally, I think blah, 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 but what I feel doesn't matter. And that's the way that, it should be with congressional districts. It shouldn't matter, do we have it carved up to where we have a bunch of left-leaning areas that are going to carry the vote over those dumb hicks out in the middle of nowhere. It should be, all right, we have this many people. We have a good blend of racial makeup. We have a good blend of, you know, a political alignment. So let's put this map out there, and however they vote, they vote. May the best man win. Because if you look at the Northeast, oh my God, like Maine is really interesting to look at when you take the congressional districts and you overlay it on a map that has the cities and towns on it, because you have one district that is concentrated in the south. It runs up and you see it loop over one big city. It goes under another big city and then works its way up the coast till it drops off. And then northern Maine, see where it comes down and it dips into this trough made by the other district, and it encompasses another major city for the state of Maine that wraps a lot of blue votes that outweigh all the country folk that live up in the mountains and up into a potato country and logging country, where it's small towns and the county populations are, it's a big county, but there's 9,000-10,000 people there total. So you can end up with, 2 or 3 counties voting against Augusta or whichever big cities in that little trough. Like I said, it's, and the same thing, you go into Massachusetts, New Hampshire, where you get a lot of people from Boston in New Hampshire that live in, a lot of people who work in Boston who live in New Hampshire, and because it's not that bad of a commute. Excuse me. And so, very, very liberal sections of the state that outweigh the rural, more conservative voting blocks in the north. And it's like that through the entirety of those states. Getting down, I said Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Maryland, Rhode Island, Connecticut, where everything's split up, not to try to, give good equal representation, but how can we obtain as much power as we can by essentially outweighing the votes of the people who live in that area. All right. So now I've spent 45 minutes almost on, Virginia, and my brain's kind of taking me down the ADHD rabbit trails. Let's get into Minnesota here. This is coming from Just the News. A legal group exposes heavy use of Minnesota's vouching system to override voter ID rules. So, America First Legal, a conservative legal group, has obtained records from the Minnesota Secretary of State showing thousands of Minnesotans using the state's vouching system to bypass voter ID while registering or updating their information during recent election cycles. The records, which were obtained through a public records request, showed Minnesota's election day registrations process allowed registered voters or certain residential facility employees to verify another voter's residency in place of standard identification or proof of address documents. Minnesota law reportedly allows a registered voter from the same precinct or an authorized employee of a residential facility to confirm another individual's residency for voting purposes if that person lacks traditional documentation in person at the polls. So, say person in a nursing home who's still active and wants to go vote. You can have Nurse Bob take resident Janie to the polling place and, well, do you live at this address? Yeah, I'm a caretaker at that facility. She does. And and personally, I don't have an issue with that because my mother-in-law is in a nursing home. If she was of a mind where she could go vote, you know, she doesn't get mail at the nursing home. So if her nursing home was in a different town, therefore, different local district, or if we live close enough to the line between, you know, our district and where in her residential center was in the next district, obviously her mailing address is not at the nursing home. So someone there would have to be like, okay, yeah, that is her legal address, but she is a patient at the care center, which is in this district. So, I can verify that that's where she lives. So it makes sense. But here in Minnesota, it sounds like they've been finding ways to abuse something that actually makes sense. See, to confirm residency for voting purposes if that person lacks traditional documentation. According to the data released by AFL, almost 18,900 election day registrations in 2024 involved the use of vouching. Of those, 13,441 were updates to existing voter registrations, while 5,457 involved new registrations. Records also showed 10,278 voter registrations or updates using vouching during the 2022 cycle, including 2,215 new registrations. In 2020, the state recorded 17,616 vouched for election day registrations or updates, including 5,069 new registrations, the data showed. AFL said tried to get more information from the Secretary of State's office, including data showing whether voters were vouched for by private citizens or residential facility employees, list of authorized facility staff, and records involving alleged fraudulent or suspicious activity connected to the system. According to AFL, the Secretary of State's office responded that, quote, it does not record or maintain data on vouching method, end quote. And in several categories replied there was, quote, no data responsive, end quote, to the request. So, yeah, like I said, this is where it gets a little sketch. You allow this to happen, and for well-intentioned purposes. I'm not going to deny that. If you have to update your registration because you're in a facility that doesn't match your ID card because you don't have a whatever reason. Your voter registration card that you last got was when you were still outside the nursing home. But to have a system in place that doesn't have a check on who was vouching, like someone can walk in and go, "Yeah, I live at this place." "Oh, sir, your ID doesn't say that." "Hold on, wait. I know that guy. Yeah, that guy. He lives where he says he does. I did some landscaping at his house last week." Or, you know, maybe it's not someone who's a nurse Bob. Maybe it's a volunteer from the community who goes and picks people up at the nursing home and takes them to the polling place. But you're not going to keep track of, well, this was vouched for by so and so. Okay, let's go through a database that has who at these facilities is allowed to vouch for residency. Oh, you're not one of those people. Yeah, that's not going to fly here. And you would think that in a precinct, it would be easy to have a list of care facilities and therefore a list of the people from those facilities who are authorized to do vouching, whether it is a head nurse, maybe it's an orderly who's there every day and knows everybody. Yep. Or an administrator who they can get X number of people onto their shuttle who want to go vote. They go there, and the administrator can be like, "Okay, Miss Louise, go ahead and give them your ID. Oh, you need to update your stuff. Oh, yep, I'm administrator so and so, and I can vouch." And they go and like, "Okay, you're from this facility, administrator." So, oh, okay, yeah. So when you don't have a way to verify who is doing the vouching, I mean, if I wanted to go be a poll watcher, a lot of places you have to have training on how to be a poll watcher. You just can't show up and I'm watching the polls. I mean, you could, but it would not be in an official capacity. If you wanted to do it as an official capacity, you have to have that training. Like I said, it's weird they'd have a system that allows it, but no check and balance on it. In a statement released with the records, AFL attorney Will Scalino criticized the state election procedures, arguing the lack of detailed tracking undermines confidence in election security. Quote, "The Minnesota Secretary of State disregards America's fundamental need for secure, transparent elections. Americans have the right to know that every vote cast is legal and every election is secure." And okay, that's where the story ends. Yeah, it's like I said, are all these votes legal? Presumably. But the question then lies on, why can't we have a way of determining, are the people doing the vouching that they're on the level? That it's not just random person off the street and gets everyone on the bus and go, "All right, who's voting this way? Who's voting that way? All right, cool." And takes them to another precinct that maybe they need some help getting someone through. Maybe whatever scheme you want to go with. Takes them to a different precinct, and then oh yeah, they came from this facility and they need to, you know, they're going to need to update their registration while they're here. And then they're they're told an address to give. They give that address, and person who came in off the streets because they're one of these rock the vote kind of people volunteering to get the vote out, and they go, "Yep, that's where I picked them up. That's where they live." Oh well, that's good enough for me, I guess. Yep. And I know it's conspiratorial, and this is just me putting stuff together as I go. But there's always a but. But again, this is one of these systems that if you're going to allow it, you got to have a way to be able to verify who's doing this. It's who watches the watchers sort of thing. Who is ensuring that the people doing the vouching are in a position where they can actually and legitimately vouch. Now, there's no active investigation in this other than, AFL requesting these and going, huh, that's odd. And giving a statement about it. But it's something to think about. All the concern about, having transparent, open elections, and Democrats want transparent, open elections. The Republicans do. We just disagree on what we're doing, on how we get that. You just would think the people who keep telling us 2020 was the most secure election ever. The people who die on that hill want to push back on things that ensure fair and transparent elections. Just makes you want to start asking questions. Go all Candace Owens. I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions. All right, so that's going to do it for me. Thank you for hanging out with me while I ranted for 45 minutes about Virginia and other assorted things because my brain is weird and just kind of goes wherever it wants. If you're new to this, whether you're watching it on the YouTube, whether you're watching it on Twitch on a replay or what have you, I used to be able to have a button that would pop up about like and follow. If you're watching this new on YouTube, hit the like button, like the video, hit the subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. That way, when I post new episodes or I go live, you get the notification. Although if you're staying up at 10 o'clock, I hope you're staying up to watch me. I really do. I hope. But anyways, again, like, subscribe, bell. If you're a podcast listener, you made it this far, be sure to do the same four things I ask every week. Number one, hit that subscribe button or follow, whatever your podcast platform of choice calls it. Once you've done that, please go and leave a rating. Number two, rate it. Look for 5 stars. I'll accept 4, 3 and below. Hit me up on the Twitters at Fake Tyler Morgan. My DMs are open. Tell me why you think I deserve 3 or less. I'm looking for constructive criticism. If you're just going to DM me and, you're stupid, blah, 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 I'm just going to ignore you. But if you think there's a way that I can make this better, please tell me. I'm always wanting to improve my craft. So if you can tell me a way to make it better, I will gladly listen to it. Once that you have subscribed and rated, please write a review on your podcast platform of choice. little paragraph, maybe, or a couple sentences on why you like the show, what you like about me. Uh, you know, fluff a little if you must, but don't get carried away. If you don't like the show, hey, be honest. Be honest. But if you're just going to use it to make ad hominem attacks, at least make them snarky and enjoyable. Pithy. Pithy. That's the word. If they're pithy and I can read it and go, oh man, this is a horrible review, but you know what? It's funny. I will appreciate a good roast. Just make it worth my time. You know, if you say something silly like he talks too much about himself and he wants to be the next Alex Jones, I will bring it up constantly to make fun of you because come on. You have all this to work with and that's the best you can come up with. Man, it's sad. Sad, man. Anyways, once you have subscribed, rated, and reviewed, please share this episode with someone who you think will enjoy it. Is that someone who you think, well, maybe they'll have some issues, but yeah, they're open-minded and they'll listen to other people and then rant and rave by I'm wrong. That's cool. I can do that too. Or send it to someone who just hearing my voice drives them over the edge. By all means, use me to drive them over the edge and get them all crazy and losing their marbles over a podcast. Makes my little heart flutter when you do it. Again, thanks for checking this out and hanging out with me. It's always a fun time here on Saturday night. And remember, as always, stay relentless.
The Tyler Morgan Show is a Relentless Daring media production. The Tyler Morgan Show is supported by its listeners. To support the show, go to ko-fi.com/Tyler Morgan Show to donate there, or relentlessdaring.com and hit the donate button at the top of the page to set up your donation. All music used in the Tyler Morgan Show is used with permission from purpleplanet.com, link in the show notes. 2 Timothy 1:7.